Friday, the final day of the week. These are the voyages of the program Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Its ongoing mission to explore strange new movies, to seek out new bits and new edifications, to boldly go where no radio program has gone before. Well, Kent's Movie Club. It's El Kent's Movie Club. El Kent's Movie Club. It's El Kent's Movie Club.
Yes, it is good to be back in 2021. Hello, Kent Wolgamott, Lincoln Journal-Star. How are you? Hope you had a great Christmas and New Year.
I am doing very well, and yes, I did. Other than getting to scoop some and snow blow and all of that one day during my week was a pleasant day. But beyond that, it was good.
We are going to kick off the new year with a new movie that came out over Christmas, actually on Christmas, if you were an HBO Max subscriber, Wonder Woman 1984. But as we start the new year, Kent, give me some big picture things of maybe what we can look forward to in 2021. Obviously, we're going to be hopefully coming out of a pandemic of sorts, and maybe there'll be, more people at theaters again. But what are some things you're just kind of looking ahead to as we think about 2021 in film?
Okay. There are multiple ways to look at this. There are plenty of movies that are out there that are going to be out there that can be in theaters, but most people aren't yet going back to theaters. So the movies that are out there are these smaller pictures that are, some of them are quite good, like the movie Nomadland that has a very good chance of being a contender for Best Picture, will come out in, I think, about a month. It's a Frances McDormand movie. But your first big picture that's on the list at the moment is the James Bond movie for the first weekend in April. I would not be surprised to see that get pushed back maybe another couple months. I think what you'll see from everything that I've been able to ascertain in the entire entertainment industry and not just the movies, the real comeback, so to speak, is probably late summer. By that point, there will be enough vaccination done that people will probably feel comfortable returning. And so I think when that happens, whenever that is, August, September, whatever, you're going to see more movies than you know what to do with, because you've got all the stacked up 2020 movies that haven't played yet, plus a whole bunch of movies that were already previously set to come out in 2021. But I think we probably got about 4 months, maybe 5 months of pretty slim pickings as far as the big movies, but plenty of small ones. Now, the other thing that's going to happen, and who knows what's going to happen in Nebraska, but your independent movie theaters, which are the prime example around here is Exarban Cinema, which is locally owned and operated, are qualified for relief under the federal package that passed, whatever it was, a couple weeks ago. The same one that had the $600 checks in it.
Right.
Is movie theaters, independent movie theaters qualified. So that money probably will be enough to keep them alive. Good. But there are a bunch of chains that are in big trouble. And if this goes out into May, June, July, you could see movie theaters closing in big chains. AMC, which already closed its Omaha theaters, was about to go bankrupt before the pandemic. it could go. That there's AMC theaters in Council Bluffs. There's another chain called Regal, which doesn't, I believe, I don't know if there are any Regal theaters around here.
I don't remember if we do anymore, but I know we used to have Regal theaters.
Well, they're also in trouble, and even Marcus. I don't think Marcus is any danger of going out of business, but it has seen its total corporate income crash by like 80% because they have movie theaters and hotels. That's a couple real good businesses to have been in the last year. So you may actually see less movie theaters out there, which then you wonder how that changes releasing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right? Because you can't release, if there are 20% less movie theaters, you can't release a movie in 4,000 theaters anymore. It has to be 3,000 or whatever, which changes marketing and all kinds of stuff, I would suspect.
Kind of along those lines, and we can use this maybe as a jumping point off into the movie, but less about this movie itself. What type of response have you seen, whether it's from your readers or from those that you talk to in the industry, about movies being released at home? You know, we saw quite a few of them throughout 2020 get released at, for Hulu or for, Amazon Prime, whatever it was. But this, of course, Wonder Woman 84, and then Soul as well on Disney Plus. Those were, I would say, the two biggest ones to be directly released at home. I know I've talked to some people who really like it because you can rewatch them. I've already watched Soul 3 times. I love that movie. Other people love just being able to rewind things, have subtitles on, all of these different options that you don't get at the theater. What have you heard from those in the industry about just these big types of movies being released at home first? Because it seems like that will be the future for at least some types of movies going forward.
Well, I think you hear three things. One, on the economics of it, the Wonder Woman movie has done fairly well in the theaters. Its gross is now over 100 million worldwide, and I guarantee you that HBO paid them a pretty good chunk of money to be able to stream it there. So economically, this might work, at least for some movies. That's one thing you hear. Secondly, there are two schools of thought. One of them is the one that you just propounded there, that people like watching them at home. They can rewind them. They can pause. You don't have to watch, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
The other side is, and I kind of fall into this as a viewer, watching anything at home is not like seeing it in the theater. And I did not go see this Wonder Woman movie in the theater, but I believe that the next time that there's this kind of thing occurs, I will go to the theater rather than watch it at home.
And is that because of the distraction of being at home?
A, distraction, and B, these movies are meant to be seen on the big screen with the extensive sound system. It's a different visual experience when you've got a 10 or 12 foot high screen and however many feet wide the ratio works out to be versus anything you can have in your house, right? It's just impossible to replicate that at home. In fact, it's impossible to replicate that in the screening room that we used to have, which was a little 14, 16 feet seat screening room that had a ratio sized screen, but it was only 4 feet high. And even that didn't have the impact of seeing a movie in the theater. Does that make a difference for your tiny little drama? Probably not. Maybe not, at least. But it certainly makes a difference for a movie like this movie, in my view.
For sure.
Well, that leads us right into it. Wonder Woman 1984. It's the sequel to the Wonder Woman from DC. Gal Gadot is back as Wonder Woman. Chris Pine, yes, his character died in the first one, but because of the plot in this one, he gets a second life. You have Pedro Pascal, who some of you might know, even though you don't see him very much. He's the Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm. And he was the Red Viper in Game of Thrones. He got his head exploded. Spoiler alert.
and Kristen Wiig
Yeah.
plays the antithesis to Wonder Woman.
Mhm.
She eventually forms into the antithesis
Yeah.
of Wonder Woman. So I guess, Kent, to me, the first thing that I noticed in this is too damn long. I'm just I watched this on Christmas night.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I watched it on Christmas night. You know, we had done all the Christmas stuff on Christmas Eve and in the morning and early in the afternoon.
And
so
you were good with the NBA. You'd watched enough NBA, so you're ready for a movie.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I know you.
Actually,
well.
truth be told, I had just come off watching the Nebraska-Michigan game
Oh.
before I started watching this.
Okay, I had to cover that.
So that's the mindset that I was in. But I just,
Yeah.
you know, I guess I don't know what it is. I why do these, and it's not just DC, it's not just Marvel, the Star Wars movies have gotten longer. These big, you know, action epics, we'll call them, just the idea that they have to be, it used to be if it was 2 hours, that was about the length of it.
Mhm.
Now it's at least 2.5 hours for these. And I just think there's so many things you can cut out of them and compact the story, and it would be better than just sitting there nonstop for 2.5.
Yeah, that was 151 minutes to be precise.
Mm.
And you could have made that movie in an hour and 45 minutes and had a better movie. I think you could have cut 45 minutes out of that movie and not lost a thing. There are two reasons I think these movies run long. One is almost a sense of giving people their money's worth. They try to cram so much stuff into them, particularly because they're supposed to be telling some continuous story from one to the other and linking it to the next one and all of that. So they got to kind of put all that together. The other is, frankly, I'm going to call it ego, or of the director, filmmakers in general. The director of this movie, she got complete creative control. She had it on the first movie, but I think she didn't quite go as far as she may have wanted to go, simply because it was her first big movie. This one, this is what she got to make the exact movie she wanted to make, and didn't have anybody in there telling her, you got to cut 25 minutes out of this from the studio, right?
Mhm.
So I think that contributes. You know, you're not going to go in and tell Joss Whedon, cut 30 minutes out of your movie. That just not how it works anymore. And so you end up with these big bloated movies. The other reason that they feel like they run so long is they are, by definition, formulaic is unfair to say, but they have certain elements of the genre that they have to do every time, and you know they're coming.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I think one of the elements in this was, and I mentioned Kristen Wiig, you know, there's always that character who starts the movie very innocently and seems like a decent person, but then because of ego or because of
Search for power.
In this case, you know, being able to wish something, they eventually become, you know, the antithesis of the
main character.
And it seems like that's a common theme in a lot of the comic book genre.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, the movie not only has the main plot because Pedro Pascal is the main villain, but it's then got the subplot of the side villain, who is this fallen person who started out very innocent and pure and ends up being, you know, terrible at the end.
Yeah.
And you also have some, I'm going to use the word humanizing element, which in this case is the romance.
Right.
Okay. Now, somebody taking somebody else's body is that's been done a bazillion times. Okay. But this made zero sense to me. number one. And number two, why is she still pining away for this guy 50 years after he died?
Get over it.
Actually,
Yeah,
more than
over it.
50, right? Because
Well,
the
World
first,
War II, so
I thought
40s?
the first, no,
Or was
first
it
World
World
War
War
One.
I?
World War One.
Oh
So
my
it was like
gosh.
60 years.
Oh, geez, almost 70 years.
Yeah, after he
Wow,
died,
yeah,
and
I
of course,
forgot- I
this
forgot
movie
about
set
that,
in
In the
1984.
Can I ask about the 84 thing?
Yeah,
Ken?
go ahead.
Because okay, so I don't remember when the first trailer came out. It's a long time ago because this movie was supposed to be released in June of 2020. So that trailer, Kent, very 80s, leaned all the way in on the 80s. By the time I watched this movie last night, you know, I mean, the movie's been out for 2 weeks. I had seen enough like tweets and stuff on the internet that I knew going in, like, apparently they don't really lean super hard into the 80s-ness of it beyond like some of the outfits, I thought, which they really did early. What did you think of that decision? Because Hans Zimmer, I noticed it earlier in the credits. He did, you know, he's done the score for a lot of Christopher Nolan movies. He did this one. I thought that was a weird choice because I guess for months and months leading up to this, I thought it was going to be kind of like a, hey, we're hanging out in the 80s, very 80s heavy. And it ended up being that, you know, like the loud superhero stuff. What did you think of that choice?
I watched it also. Well, I didn't watch it on Christmas Day because I was having trauma from having had to sit through that Nebraska basketball game. But I watched it the day after, and I was like, well, what does this have to do with the 80s at all?
Right.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't seen the tweets or anything. And I'm like, what does this have to do with the 80s at all? Why did they make it 1984? It could have been any time. And I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all.
Yeah, but
because as you say, what, after the first 15, 20 minutes, there's virtually no real reference that would have made any difference.
no, I mean, by the end of the movie, heck, by the middle part of the movie, you could
When they're
have
over in Cairo, I think is when you basically forget that it's an 80s movie. When the wall came up.
That's
Yeah.
in Egypt.
Yeah. I basically just forgot like it's an 80s movie. 'Cause
Right.
Early on there, you know,
Well,
you're
the
seeing
first-
the goofy outfits and Chris Pine
the
shows
first
up.
scene is held in a big mall, which
Yeah.
very 80s, you know, with a lot of the different references there.
Yeah.
And then there was the scene when Chris Pine's character starts to, you know, models all the different clothes that he could wear, and that was very 80s-esque. But outside of that, it didn't feel like, it felt like if you would have dropped me in at the middle of this film and watched it from the middle to the end, I would have been confused as to why they called it Wonder Woman 1984.
Yeah.
And so as a child of the 80s, I was kind of hoping for more of those callbacks.
Kind of like
because-
Back to the Future does, like throughout.
Exactly.
You
And
see a
Stranger
billboard.
Things.
So
or
this
you
didn't
see-
feel like
yeah.
a time warp movie.
or even the pop music, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, where was the-
When you're- you know, when you're in a scene where you might be on the street or in a, you know, where you might hear some random music, they didn't even have that.
No, Huey Lewis.
My review. I fell asleep like an hour into it,
Oh, wow.
and then
Okay.
I woke up and I was like, "All right, I got time to finish this," or I could even log in at work. And then I really didn't enjoy it so much that I was like, "Nah, I don't really feel
Honestly,
like watching the last 90
I
minutes."
would say it got worse. I'd say that the end,
Okay,
especially
good.
like when Kristen Wiig turned into the cheetah, by that point, it was just like, seriously. And I don't know. I thought,
I don't really know the context of that, so it's funnier to hear you say when Kristen Wiig turns into the cheetah.
yeah. And I don't know. I thought it was weird, Kent, and this is like a super nerdy thing to bring up, but I hate this part about Superman, that like she just kind of wanders around and doesn't ever have a disguise, and then she's like randomly putting on her Wonder Woman outfit, and then she's Wonder Woman. Like, I don't, you know, look, we have to suspend, you know,
Start
just
watching
like-
a superhero
yeah,
movie.
but some like just little things like that annoy me at
Yeah.
times, and the
Well,
whole
and
movie-
those are DC traits. And remember that the DC comics are far earlier than the Marvels.
Correct.
So these are comics that were written in the 30s largely, or
Yeah.
the characters began in the 30s. And so if you're the original Batman, he just had that cowl. You would have been able to know who he was looking at him too.
yeah.
So this whole idea of a disguise or a, you know, hiding yourself, you know, whether you're, Iron Man in the costume or whatever.
Superman just put a pair of glasses on and was like,
Yeah, who's that?
And worked in a
Exact same
newsroom.
hair.
Okay, he worked at a newspaper.
Yeah, seriously. Bad reporters there.
People might have recognized him,
And
maybe.
And on top of that too, like the fact that this movie is based around like a rock that gives you wishes, like I don't like it. It just reminded me sometimes like superhero movies really need a good villain, and the villain. I love Pedro Pascal. I think is a good actor, but I like weird.
It wasn't a great villain.
It was not a great villain.
And he was over the top on top of that.
Yeah.
But I had to combine two comments here. I
Okay.
saw a tweet this morning because I was out looking around about this just to see what people have said. And I saw a tweet from a woman who was watching, and she said, I've watched 45 minutes of this movie and there's no plot.
Yeah.
Which goes to what Stib said.
And then he fell asleep.
What you were saying about the wish fulfilling jewel thing.
uh-huh.
I had somebody said that movie felt like it was made for 7 or 8 year olds.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
So you talking about that there was no plot. I remember thinking the same thing, but I also had planned on I haven't seen the first one. And so I planned on watching the first one first and just didn't. And so as I'm saying that to myself, I'm like, I'm probably just missing out something from the first time. Something probably made sense to other people who saw the first one.
No,
It's crazy, you know, because obviously this didn't come out in theaters, but I mean, to kind of crap their pants on such a big blockbuster movie like this, it's insane that you can have all those hands involved and all the people involved knowing that this is a franchise and that they can just screw it up like this.
It almost makes you wonder, because you've said this before.
Too many cooks?
Well, but you said this before, Kent, that, sometimes you'll take a movie like this and release it later because it didn't test very well. I almost wonder if the timing of this, because it was the first big blockbuster and the only one over Christmas, and the first time that this HBO Max deal with Warner Brothers started, that it was done so intentionally, knowing that if this were one of the movies you were talking about earlier, Kent, that we wait until late summer to get, that it would have gotten completely buried.
very good.
Whereas now it stands alone. So even if it's not very good, well, for a lot of people, it's at least something, and so they'll watch.
And that may be a very insightful point there. I hadn't thought of that, but I think that might be the point. But no, boys, that we get a third one of these.
I think I'm going to avoid that one.
I like it. It's going to be 1987.
Maybe they'll go back in time. They'll go back to the 60s.
But you won't know it.
But you won't know. Yeah. Hey, look,
It'll be in the title.
look at these old clothes for 5 minutes, and then they'll just move on very quickly.
That's the end of it.
And my other criticism of this is there wasn't enough action in it.
Yeah.
If you're going to give me a 2.5-hour movie, give me like 7 or 8 action scenes.
Yeah, because you get the action scene at the beginning at the mall, and then 45 minutes before we figure out what the plot actually is, there's a little action when they go to Cairo, and then there's a big fight at the end. But yeah, there's probably
3-4 scenes.
Yeah, there's like close to an hour where there's not really like a major conflict.
Yeah, honestly, the second big fight scene, which was the one I think when
in the desert.
That one. So okay, so I'm thinking of the next one. Then by the time that Chris Pine like died or whatever, when she was like, "I renounce my wish," I realized like, oh my gosh, we haven't seen any like type of action in a long time in this movie.
Yeah.
See, and that was probably what John said. It was probably close to an hour.
It felt like it.
Yeah.
And this is weird. I mean, it's all movies don't have to all be action packed. How many of them have we watched here that have had zero action? But a comic book movie, a superhero movie needs action.
Yeah.
And if it's not going to have it, it's got to be interesting at least. Like, The Dark Knight Rises, that is like basically 3 true action pieces. Because for a while, Batman has a broken back and he's just kind of hanging out in prison. True. But the movie is interesting enough away from the action.
Set up enough other characters and situations to keep things moving while he's not doing anything.
See, and that, okay. Is Wonder Woman interesting? Like I forget her name. Is she a good actress? Because there were times, like late where she's kind of like crying, and about Chris Pine's character, and I'm like, are we sure that she's actually a good actress for this character?
I think she's a good actress, and I think that she's a very interesting character, and is very it's important in part because she's a she, and that
Sure.
the director is a woman. What's her last?
Sally Jenkins.
Sally Jenkins. I couldn't remember her first name, and they've injected some femaleness. I'm not going to use the word femininity because that carries an idea with it. But there's a female perspective that comes out of this that is part of what made the first one so good.
Right. That's the thing. I think the first one was good, and that's why I was a little disappointed in this one. Not that the sequels are always better, but this one seemed to be such a step back.
Yeah.
But to Josh's point, I think it is an interesting character because in a very masculine world, it is the one female superhero. And that especially in this day and age, you would expect that movies like this would carry a lot of weight, and that's why to me this one was just very disappointing.
Yeah.
Yep. And you got to wonder what happens with number 3, frankly.
Sure.
But we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
First lesson, hour and 45 minutes. You can do it.
You can even go 2 hours. But
sure, 2 hours.
120 minutes. There should just be a cut. You're done. It doesn't matter where you're at. 120 minutes gone.
End it like The Sopranos if you have to.
Ooh, cut to black.
Fade to black. Actually, cut to black.
Yeah.
All right, Kent. Well, Stibbs. God. What? You get to pick the first movie of 2021. Why do you applaud? You don't like them either.
Hey, I've liked half of them.
Hey, before you go, a Stibbs movie
Let me write
made
it down.
my top 10 for the year.
What was
Suck it, guys.
What was that? What movie?
Oh, the
Platform?
no, not the platform. No, the
Platform did make it. It would be number 2 on the list.
I'm thinking of Ending It All.
Oh, I didn't even like that one
Yeah,
that
neither
much.
did I.
I was intrigued by it, but it was not what it was the really
to
weird
remember.
one with the dog shaking randomly and
Naked fat guy.
I wonder if maybe that one you missed. Or you just pretended like you watched it. You didn't. It was a Netflix one.
Jesse Plemons from Breaking Bad.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
weird.
Yeah, okay, now I
But I like weird movies.
I do too. That one was weird.
So that was on there, and actually, trying to think, there may have been one more, but that one for sure. And the platform got some consideration, but it didn't quite make it.
Honorable mention.
The really, I don't think we did this on here, but your intensely weird and disturbing sci-fi movie of the year for last year is called Possessor and
You told me about it,
Whoa!
and I'd forgotten it. I'm glad you told me now.
Yeah, go check that thing out. It's
Where's
You
that
said
on?
that as a drop.
What's it on, Kent?
I don't know where it is streaming, but I think it is streaming now because
You can rent it for 99 cents on Amazon Prime.
Oh,
there you go. It's worth $1, but strap yourself in. It's real. When I say a movie's disturbing, you know it's disturbing, and it has. Speaking of occupying somebody else's body, that's kind of a main theme of it, but it's way more unsettling than this, and graphic, and yeah.
A movie's polar. The average audience rating is like 3 right down the middle, and there's a ton of 5s and a ton of 1s.
Ooh.
So you either like Kent, where you're like, this is great.
The
and
poster
crazy.
is creepy.
Yeah, it
Look
is.
at the poster. That's a weird poster.
All right, Stibbs, what are you
Makes
going
me
to
wanna
poison
pick
us
that
with
one.
next week?
Well, I found out Josh has seen this, so it kind of makes me sad.
We can still. Are you going to do it?
I'm still going to.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because
Great movie.
I haven't seen it in a very long time.
Same.
And I'm honest to God, John, I'm excited to pick a movie that I am 99.5% sure that you're going to love because you say you haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
Best in Show.
Oh,
It's one of my favorites. I haven't seen it in probably a decade. And I'm very, very, very excited to talk to Ken about it and watch it again. And
Yeah.
I'm very excited to get John's thoughts because
And
I think
it
he'll
is
love
on Hulu.
it. It's on Hulu.
Now, are we sure it's on Hulu, Stibbs? Because I just
it says premium.
I know. I just
subscription.
looked it up on the streaming website, and it might not be.
Well, crap.
Yeah, that. It's available on Hulu via Showtime, so we'd have to have a Showtime.
Why did they even say
Oh.
that?
I know that's not Hulu. It's on
It's not
Showtime.
Hulu, Yeah.
Strike one, Stibbs.
Do you have any
Crap.
backup options, real fast,
I
Stibbsy?
did, but that one's not available either.
Star Wars.
Why don't we? How about Possessor for $1 on Amazon Prime?
Wow, you're just leaning right into it.
No, I'll. Why don't we tweet one out then? 'Cause I don't.
All
have,
right.
All right.
I don't have anything
Stibbs will
ready.
find one.
I'll,
And
I'll let you know. what it is,
Clockwork
Ken.
Orange is on Netflix, Stibbs. That's a weird movie.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Whoa! I
I've never
don't
seen
need to
that.
watch Clockwork Orange again for a while. That
Ken,
is way disturbing too.
have you seen Soul yet, Kent, on Disney Plus?
Yeah, great, really entertaining, really good movie.
I love that movie. I recommend Soul to people.
All right. Well, we'll get a tweet out here as soon as we
Yeah,
can
I'll
confirm
find one.
something. And until next week, Kent, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next week.
See you next week.
Thanks,
There it
Kent.
is. Kent, welcome on to the Lincoln Journal Star. That is your movie club. We'll debate about what Stibbs should pick on during the break and be back with
Mhm.
more. We still have predictions to come on 1620 The Zone.